Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We'll go ahead and let a few more people take their seats. And I want to give a big welcome to everybody here who's joining us via Zoom. We're glad that you're here with us today. I'm Kirsty Julia, your AWARE president, and I'm so happy and honored that all of y'all are here with us today for braving the crazy weather out there. So we're glad you're here, and also welcome to everyone on Zoom. I did, oh, can you hear me now? Okay, great. We're going to keep our updates short so we can move right into Dr. Annie Fenn. But before I start our meeting, everybody knows I always like to read the why in the mission statement of AWARE. So if you would grab your agenda that you have sitting right at your table, it's very important for me for everyone to understand why AWARE is around and the mission statement that we do have for AWARE. So if you would mind, if you would read this with me. So what is the mission of AWARE? AWARE has remained true to its mission since its founding. AWARE remains dedicated to fighting Alzheimer's disease by funding support to programs, projects, and research provided by nonprofit organizations that actively help individuals affected by Alzheimer's disease. Reverend and first elected president, Cindy Hudgens, led a small group of passionate and civic-minded Dallas women to create AWARE in 1989. Since that time, AWARE has raised and donated $14 million. Wonderful. Thank you. I do want to give a shout out. We have Cindy Hudgens here. You'll raise your hand. And we also have Anita Sample. They're here with us in person, and they were part of our founders for this wonderful organization. So thank you all so much for being here. Truly, it's an honor to have y'all here. And with that said, I'm going to have Reverend Nicole Bates go ahead and come on up and give us our blessing for the lunch.
And our drive.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you, Nicole.
Glad you're here. Let us pray. God, when your people come together for a common mission, it doesn't matter if we are together around a table or in front of our home computers, because your spirit connects us, our mission connects us, our desire to make Dallas and North Texas a healthy, happy, wonderful place connects us. So we pray today that this meal, this time, and this fellowship will sustain us, will motivate us, and will work with us to help end Alzheimer's. Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Thanks.
Thank you. How awesome it is that we belong to an organization that does a blessing before the lunch. I love that. Next on our agenda, Emily Collins. We're going to welcome Emily, and she's going to give us a quick treasure report.
Quick treasure. Oh, microphone. Okay.
Microphone, yes, and Zoom.
Okay. Okay, I'm not used to that. Okay, quick treasure report. In our activity fund is $514,000, $788.85. Our operating fund is $95,118.52. And that gives us a total monies available $609,907.37. So thank y'all for all of your hard work.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you. Okay, and next on the agenda are our AWARE Affair chairs this year, Mary Epperson and Sharon Blue. Yay. And Jolie, are you going to also come with us? Okay, yay. Please give them a round of applause.
Good morning, everyone, and hi to everybody on Zoom land. We are glad to be here, and we are very excited about the gala coming up. Just as a refresher, we want to make sure that you do have it on your calendars. It is Friday, April the 8th, and it will be at the iconic Braniff Center. Now, we know that that has a lot of history, and it's going to be so much fun to be there, and also in a private hangar. So we have a lot of fun things planned for everyone. Our honorary chairs are Leroy Jordan and his wife Biddy, and they are so lovely to be around, and we've just enjoyed getting to know them. And we are hoping to raise so many critical funds that we just really have to do it. We want to encourage all of you, if you have not had an opportunity to purchase those tickets or to purchase those sponsorships, please do so. And we are willing to take your credit card or check today. So we are trying to make it as convenient as we can for you. I'm going to turn it over to Sharon, my partner in crime.
Thanks, Mary. So I always say Mary's a fun one and I'm the numbers person. So as the numbers person, we're doing very well, but we need $75,000 more heading into the event. So please, when you get your invitation in the mail, which is going to go out the first week in March, please go ahead and purchase tickets and sign up. And if you can't attend, make a donation. But we do appreciate you supporting the event.
Hello, I'm Jolie Humphrey and I'm grant chair. Stepping in after Stacy Angel. Is she here today,
She's on
Stacy?
Zoom.
Stacy, what the heck? Okay. Okay, see, she just leaves me high and dry. Okay. We have 21 grant applications this year totaling $763,480. Let me repeat that. 763,480. It's a lot of money we have to raise. Now, we haven't raised that much ever in the past, but maybe this year is the year, we hope. So we begin tomorrow with our site visits. Tomorrow, we're doing half virtual. Actually, a third of them are virtual, 2/3 are in person. And so we're excited. So tomorrow, and I'm going to tell you who my committee is. Some of you are in this room. Gail Plummer is chair, she'll be chair-elect after me. I don't know if she's here. Barbara Seipolt, Anita Samples, Cynthia Hudgens, Mary Jo Linscomb, Sharon Ballou, Emily Collins, Judy Diamond, Barbara Glass, Janet Broyles, Vinnie Stewart, Sharon Walker, Stephanie Bray, Kirsty Julia, and Carol Frazen. And most important, Stacy Angel, because she has held my hand through this whole process, and I'm nervous as heck to take her lead. But I'm going to do it because God is good. So there you go. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie. Thank you all so very much. Thank you. Now we are going to have Barbara Matamoras come up. She's the Director of Sales and Marketing for Forefront, and she is going to tell us about this beautiful community. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say a quick welcome, and it's wonderful to see a lot of familiar faces. Many of you I know in the past, we have had events here. You guys are the first event we've had since the big COVID started. So bear with us if we're still kind of struggling to get some stuff done. I know you're going to enjoy the food. But to give you just a brief overview, if you are not familiar with Forefront Living, we operate Presbyterian Village North, which is a continuum of care retirement community in North Dallas, where we have independent living, assisted living, memory assisted living, as well as nursing services on the campus. And we do have a secure memory area for late stage dementia at that campus. In addition, we are in the process of pre-selling a new retirement community in the Plano area called the Outlook at Windhaven. We hope to be opening that project in 2024. And we are currently taking pre-reservations, and we have close to 100 apartments already pre-sold. And then last but not least, we have, of course, Faith Presbyterian Hospice, providing community hospice services around the Dallas Metroplex, as well as inpatient services at the T.B. Pickens Hospice Center. You are in our education center, and we hope to see more of you all in 2022. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you. Next on our agenda is Margo Crawford, and she's going to introduce our speaker today. Margo Crawford, it was so wonderful in helping us bring Dr. Amy Fenn in today. I was so excited when Margo was like, have you heard of Dr. Fenn? I'm like, no, I haven't, but I need to. And so we have told so many people about her. And so I just want to thank you so much, Margo, for introducing all of us to Dr. Fenn, and what an honor it is to have you here with us in person. So with that said, Margo, if you want to introduce her, that'd be great.
Thank you, Kirsty. Thank you for braving the weather and coming out today. We're so happy to see all of your smiling faces. So it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you our speaker for today's meeting. Dr. Annie Fenn is a physician and chef focused on Alzheimer's prevention. She is the founder of Brain Health Kitchen, a cooking school that teaches people how to cook and eat with brain healthy foods. Based in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Dr. Fenn travels all over the country and abroad to lecture on how to prevent Alzheimer's with proven lifestyle changes. She and her husband have 2 sons. Dr. Fenn is a board-certified obstetrician, gynecologist, and a fellow of the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. She graduated from the Chicago Medical School, Fenton University of Health Sciences, and completed a 4-year residency in Chicago. Over the years, she delivered nearly 1,000 babies, cared for multiple generations of women, and specialized in menopausal health care. For the last 6 years of practice, she focused primarily on helping her patients go through menopause as the only certified menopausal health expert in her area in the state of Wyoming. When she retired from her busy practice in Jackson a few years ago, her primary intention was to spend more time with family. As it turns out, she wasn't quite ready for a leisurely retirement. She started a website to write about food and culture in her hometown, wrote feature articles for magazines, and jumped into a newspaper column due every 2 weeks. Soon she was signed on as a culinary instructor at her local community college, primarily teaching folks how to cook with the whole foods for optimal nutrition. In 2015, Dr. Fenn began teaching brain healthy cooking classes through BrainWorks, an 8-week dementia prevention course. Since then, she has taught almost 1,000 motivated students who want to reduce their risk and improve their cognitive function as they age. As one of Dr. Fenn's students said, "You are not just giving us recipes, Annie, you are giving us hope." And with that, please help me in welcoming Dr. Annie Fenn.
No, make sure my mic on. Yeah, I'm on. Am I good? Can everybody hear me? I'm on. There we go. Is that better? Yeah. I just had to touch it. I'm trying to touch. I tried to touch it again. Thank you so much for that introduction. I've only been in Texas for less than 12 hours. Everyone is so incredibly nice here. Is everybody in Texas so delightful and kind? That's definitely my impression. Or it might just be that the team that brought me here today has just been so amazing and wonderful to work with. And when I first heard about Aware, it sounded like a match made in heaven for what my mission is and for what your mission is. And so I'm so excited to share some things with you today. So our topic today is what to eat to fend off Alzheimer's and other types of dementia. A few things about me. I think this was already covered. I'm from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where this is my actual kitchen window, where I often have moose coming by as I'm cooking, elk, and the occasional bear. I did retire from my medical practice when I was 45. I didn't have a real plan as to what I wanted to do. Like Margo said, I really just wanted to be a soccer mom for a couple of years. I felt like my kids were growing up way too fast. But I did decide to go to culinary school in the summers. And after I did that, I started to get really interested in the interface between healthy cooking and health, because I'd seen a lot of poor nutrition in my practice. And I'd become convinced, even in obstetrics and gynecology, that a lot of the problems that I was taking care of could probably be prevented with diet and lifestyle. So I went back to school at the age of 45, which my kids thought was just hilarious. This is my mom, Diana. She was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment in 2015. And if it wasn't for my mom, Brain Health Kitchen would not be in existence today. I had already gone to culinary school. I had already started teaching cooking in my community. But when my mom was diagnosed, if any of you are physicians or in the health field, you know that when a family member gets diagnosed with something, you take a deep dive into the scientific literature to figure out everything you can to help this person. And that's what I did in 2014, 2015. And I was really happy to learn that there was a large body of science that showed not only can you prevent Alzheimer's, but if you have MCI like my mom did then, you can actually slow the progression. So Brain Health Kitchen is a cooking school. It's an online resource. It's soon to be a cookbook. But I really think of it as a community of all these students that I've taught, all the people that have come to my classes, all the people that send me messages on Instagram and tell me their story. I feel like it's a community of people who want to learn how to take care of their brains as they get older. That's how I like to think of it. So my mission is to help you find ways to reduce your risk of age-related cognitive decline while still eating delicious food. Because I don't want to give up eating good food, and I know you don't want to either. So my mission is to make the brain healthy diet as absolutely delicious as possible. These are some of the wonderful students I've had over the years. So today, I'd like to share some of my favorite science studies with you. And we're going to talk about brain protective dietary patterns. I admit I've got some sciencey slides I'm going to throw at you, but it's okay. Feel free to ask questions as we go. I'm fine with that. We're going to talk about the Mediterranean diet, the Mind diet, vegan and plant-based diets, and the Green Med diet. I'm going to show you my Brain Health Kitchen food guidelines, which I put together just to kind of make it easier for people to fold this brain healthy way of eating into their life. I think people just need help making the best choices. Everybody wants to eat well, but sometimes it's not so easy. I'm going to tell you about the different cooking techniques I recommend, give you some tips, and then I'm going to give you some brain health homework. And does anybody know why I have a picture of nuns up here? No?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's part of the homework. We'll get to that. The Mediterranean. Let's start here. Who hasn't heard of the Mediterranean diet? Who doesn't know that it's actually good for your brain, right? It's always the most heart and brain healthy diet whenever it's talked about. You've probably seen the Mediterranean diet pyramid before, right? So what do you notice when you see this? What jumps out at you?
Wine.
Famously, it includes red wine with meals, usually just with the evening meal, but sometimes lunch as well. What else? Yeah, meats and sweets are really small there. So the base of the Mediterranean diet pyramid is mostly plants. It's vegetables, it's fruits, it's nuts, it's seeds, it's grains, it's legumes, it's all of those things. And then fish and seafood is more prominent, you know, in the Mediterranean countries and here, and other places in the US. And then poultry, eggs, cheese, dairy products in general are a much smaller portion of the diet. Traditionally in Mediterranean countries, they would only eat meat on special occasions or on Sunday. When I grew up in a Sicilian American family, we usually just had meat at Sunday supper. That's the only time we had meat during the week. And then on top are meats and sweets. Now think about, what if you took the Mediterranean diet pyramid and you turned it upside down? Yeah, what if most of the calories we consumed was meat or sweets or packaged goods or sugary drinks or things of that sort? And then there was a lot of chicken and cheese and dairy products after that. And then after that, there was a lot of, you know, like some fish or seafood. But you know what Americans eat most in terms of seafood? What's our favorite type of seafood? Fried shrimp. Yeah, fried shrimp. And then, so that's basically what the standard American diet is. And I know none of you here probably eat that way. And most everyone I know is trying to eat more healthfully. But most of America is still eating the standard American diet. And that's a real problem in terms of our brain health as a nation. So why is the Mediterranean diet so good for you? A couple of the landmark studies, we have more than 24 studies that are considered landmark when it comes to preventing Alzheimer's with the Mediterranean diet. We know that it can reduce your risk by 40% if you follow this diet for most of your life. We know that you can reduce your risk of having a heart attack or a stroke by 30% if you follow the Mediterranean diet. So that right there clears up many of Americans' health problems, right? We also have data that improves cognitive function, meaning people do better on memory testing if they follow this dietary pattern. So that's good news, right? Nobody wants to lose any memories, any more than we already have, right? The Mediterranean diet has also been studied in the last 5 years for its role in treating depression. The SMILES data that came out of Australia showed that if you give someone who is being treated for depression or anxiety, if you put them on a Mediterranean diet, they actually get 25% better in conjunction with their other therapeutic modalities than not being on the Mediterranean diet. And this is super important for the adolescents and the young people in our country who are often eating a nutrient-poor diet and suffering from a lot of anxiety and depression. So we know that. And we also know, and this is really exciting, when you study biomarkers for Alzheimer's, so biomarkers are basically anything that you can test, like a blood test, or amyloid protein in the cerebrospinal fluid, or a PET scan. When you look at biomarkers for Alzheimer's, if you put someone who's middle-aged, like I am, say mid-50s, on a Mediterranean diet, their biomarkers go down in just 3 years. So it's not like you have to be born on this diet. What you eat at midlife seems to be crucial though. Now, the most compelling data we have for the Mediterranean diet is brain volume data. So I'm sorry that you're all eating and I'm showing you these sciencey slides, but I think you'll find this is really powerful. I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Lisa Mosconi. She's a neuroscientist at Cornell-Weill who studies brains and Alzheimer's. She started to ask the question, what does someone's brain look like if they follow a standard American diet versus a Mediterranean diet? And so her pilot study was 52 brains, and she followed people in terms of their brain volume. Now, why is brain volume important? Why do you want to have a big, robust brain volume as you age? Yeah, it's not atrophy, exactly. Atrophy is the opposite. So brain volume is gray matter, it's white matter, it's neurons, it's synapses, all those connections that you know are so important. Brain volume is memories. It's all the memories that you have. It's your intellect. It's all of the things that we've seen our loved ones lose when they get Alzheimer's. So when you age with a robust brain volume, you are less likely to get Alzheimer's. Okay. If your brain shrinks as you age, that is a marker for Alzheimer's. So anyways, what Dr. Mosconi found was people on a Mediterranean diet have twice the brain volume of an age-matched control on standard American diet. Isn't that crazy? Twice the brain volume. And that was just the beginning. Now we've got all these other follow-up studies. In Scotland, they studied 562 brains. And I love this study because I have a lot of my students who are in their 70s or older, and they're like, Annie, what can I do? I'm already 73 years old. You're not going to change my brain. It's like, well, in Scotland they did. They took people from a Scottish diet, which I guess is a lot like the standard American one. They switched them to the Mediterranean diet. They actually showed improvement in their brain volume over 3 years. And these are brains that you would think, maybe wouldn't make that much change. So that was very powerful. And then we have another study, 512 brains that showed all of the same things, plus less amyloid deposition. Amyloid, as you probably know, is the protein that's implicated with Alzheimer's disease. It's one of the findings we see with Alzheimer's disease, and better memory studies. So who here has heard of the MIND diet? A lot of you have. So the MIND diet, the researcher who published this, Dr. Margo Crawford at Rushmore University, she asked the question, so we have all this great data on the Mediterranean diet. How do we make that even more brain specific? The Mediterranean diet studies were really looking at cardiovascular disease mostly. Then they went back and looked at a lot of the data through the lens of brain health. She's like, well, what if we take what we know from which foods are really good for the brain and make it like a more brain specific Mediterranean diet? So that's what she did. And this study was published in 2015. It's definitely one of the landmark papers that urged me to start Brain Health Kitchen because it was so compelling. Now, MIND stands for Mediterranean Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay, which is a mouthful. So we just call it the MIND diet. This is Dr. Margo Crawford on the left. She's a lead researcher from Rush. She came out to Jackson Hole and did some cooking classes with me and gave us some talks, which was a huge privilege. What Dr. Martha Claire did, she took over 900 participants. This was in the greater Chicago area. These people were middle-aged and older age adults. They all had healthy brains. They did not have dementia, okay? And they followed them very closely for 4.5 years with cognitive testing, like memory tests. And they did very detailed nutritional analysis, like what they ate every day. And they put together 10 brain healthy food groups. Okay? This is what they asked them to eat. But if they adhered to the diet, they got a certain score. If they didn't adhere, which a lot of people do, then they got a different score. So it's sort of a spectrum of what they ate. So what's different here than the Mediterranean diet you'll see is they took the green leafy vegetables and they separated it out from that pile of vegetables you saw in the Mediterranean diet pyramid. And the reason they did that is because leafy greens on their own have been shown to slow down the aging of the brain. So Martha Claire said, well, let's make sure people eat their leafy greens, not just any kind of vegetable, but leafy greens are super important. The other thing that they did was they made berries their own food group. So who doesn't know about blueberries, right? Blueberries is like the poster child for the brain healthy food. But berries are particularly brain healthy because of the flavonoids that they contain, which are brain health nutrients. They actually scrub the brain of amyloid plaque and also are potently antioxidant. So berries are super important. The other thing she did was, you know, the Mediterranean diet says to eat a lot of fish. That's not so easy for Americans, really, because a lot of times we don't have access to good fish, or it's really expensive, or people don't like to cook it, all sorts of reasons. So they just limited it at 1 serving a week of fish. And interestingly, they did not find any more reduction in Alzheimer's risk if the people ate more fish than that. You can eat more if you like, but they're trying to get the sweet spot of getting omega-3s from the fish, but not getting a lot of the environmental toxins. They're limiting it to 1 serving a week. And they included olive oil as your primary cooking oil, which means you get rid of all the other junky oils that you cook with, and you only cook with olive oil, which is a key factor in the Mediterranean diet success. And yes, they kept the red wine. But that's the good news. The bad news is you have to measure it to 5 ounces, which is a very small glass of wine. Now, they also describe 5 food groups to limit or avoid. And as you might suspect, this is fried food and fast food, red meat, margarine, butter, cheese, and pastries and sweets. Now, what do all of these foods have in common? Fat? What kind of fat? Saturated fat. So Dr. Morris knew that there was a direct correlation between the saturated fat in your diet and your risk of getting Alzheimer's. Those studies had already been done. So she designed these guidelines around the fact that she wants you to slash the saturated fat from your diet to less than 5%. That's why, you know, the butter is less than a tablespoon a day. The original Mind Diet study, the cheese was less than 1 ounce a week. In the ongoing trial now, she actually bumped that up to 2 ounces a week, which doesn't really make much of it. And what about the pastries and sweets part? I mean, most of the pastries and sweets that Americans eat are actually just really processed foods. You know, it's all the things that you buy that have refined flour. Therefore, the sugar in them hits your bloodstream really rapidly. And I'm sure you all know there's a relationship between diabetes or having elevated blood sugar and getting Alzheimer's later. So, does anybody know the results from this study? So the people that adhere to the Mind Diet most strictly, after 4.5 years, they had 53% reduction in Alzheimer's rates. 53%. And the people that followed it sometimes, because it's really hard to follow a diet, and maybe they just ate more butter, they ate more cheese, or they ate more meat, they had 37% reduction in Alzheimer's, which is pretty remarkable. Pretty remarkable. They also compared the Mind Diet head-to-head with Mediterranean diet. And they showed that there was improved cognitive function over just the Mediterranean diet by itself. So maybe it was the berries, maybe it was the leafy greens. Here's the same data another way. Like, do we know anything else can reduce your risk by 53% of getting Alzheimer's? Exercise. I know, and the thing that's even more powerful about this is all they did was change what they ate. And now we have other studies that show to combine diet with exercise. Some people are predicting we can reduce Alzheimer's rates by 90%. But the studies show with combined lifestyle, like exercise, diet, mindfulness techniques, building cognitive reserve, that we can get up to 60%. But some researchers are predicting that we will get up to 90% reduction in Alzheimer's by changing lifestyle. And exercise is a huge part of that. So the Mind Diet was a slam dunk success. Would you agree? I put my mom on it immediately. We got rid of all the junky food in her house. We actually took her off the wine though. We did a modified Mind Diet. No wine. She already had mild cognitive impairment. The wine was not helping her out whatsoever. And that was in 2015. That's the absolute best thing we could do. Now, who's heard of the Green Med Diet? This one's new. Just a couple papers. A paper came out in January, just a couple months ago. And you know how I was saying how brain volume is sort of the gold standard? When you look at brain volume, that really gets your attention as an Alzheimer's researcher. This is what they did. They took 284 participants. Everyone needed to lose weight, and they all thought they were in a study that was something about weight loss. And they had 3 arms. They had the Mediterranean diet. They had a standard healthy, reduced calorie type diet. And then they had what they call the green med. That's the Mediterranean diet with a quarter cup of walnuts and 3 to 4 cups of green tea. And then they made a green shake out of this plant called mankai that they get in tablets, just a way that they could standardize it. So they had a green shake for dinner and it had very little processed meats or any meat at all. And then all participants got a gym pass. They all exercise and they all eat this diet. And this is the largest study to look at brain data for as long as 18 months in an interventional trial. So after 18 months, they measured everyone's brain volume. Oh, by the way, these are some of the recipes from my cookbook that's coming out. You're the first people to see these pictures. They're not quite ready for prime time. So what they found was the green Mediterranean diet actually did preserve brain volume more than even the Mediterranean diet and more than the standard diet alone. Although they all did a really good job. The green med had that boost of polyphenols that apparently was the kicker. And they also saw, and this was really important, with the green med diet, they saw less atrophy in the hippocampus. So does anyone know what part of the brain that is? The hippocampus? Yes, it's the memory center of the brain. So the hippocampus also has like a volume that fluctuates. It also becomes insulin resistant on its own. So it's an organ inside the brain that is studied tremendously in these studies. It's also where Alzheimer's attacks first. We first start to see amyloid and tau deposition. So I'm not saying that we all should be having green shakes for dinner, but this is definitely something in favor of adding polyphenols to your diet, no matter how you can do it. So what about plant-based dietary patterns? Is anybody here vegan or 100% whole food plant-based? No, I mean, there's definitely gaining traction around the country that people are becoming fully on plant-based, not eating any dairy products, or any meat products whatsoever. But what does the data show? Is this something you should try to attain to reduce your Alzheimer's risk? Well, you know, the data is actually mixed. There's very strong data that whole food plant-based diets will reduce your risk of stroke and heart disease. And if you take a population of, say, 100 people with Alzheimer's disease that has been diagnosed by autopsy, half of those people will also have vascular dementia. So there's this huge overlap. There's this huge mixed picture for most people. So for most people, Alzheimer's is not pure Alzheimer's, although there is that, but a lot of it has to do with the health of the blood supply to the brain. I mean, how could it not be, right? We think about our blood vessels and blood flow and things of that, and how many strokes can cause dementia and cognitive decline. So the data may be coming, but we don't have it yet. There's not enough data there for me to tell you that you have to be 100% whole food plant-based. Plus, what's missing in a plant-based diet? There's plenty of protein. This is my fully loaded tofu recipe.
Good oil, healthy
Fish. Yeah, except for pescatarian, which is vegetarian with fish. It really concerns me when you take the fish out of the diet, because the fat in fish and seafood, the omega-3 fatty acids, are absolutely crucial for brain health. So I came up with my own guidelines. When I started writing my book at the very beginning of the pandemic, I was going to go with the Mind Diet guidelines, and I was creating recipes from the Mind Diet guidelines, which of course, you can't argue with success, right? They've posted really, really good data. But honestly, the Mind Diet came out in 2015. And since then, there have been hundreds of studies that kind of fine-tune our knowledge of what to eat for Alzheimer's. So I wanted to incorporate some of that into my guidelines. And I also wanted to make them more specific. The Mind Diet says, 2 or more servings of poultry a week. What does that mean? How do you be more specific about the foods that you eat? Or 1 serving of vegetables a day? Well, certain vegetables are better than others. So I'll share these with you. And I changed the food groups to limit or avoid a little bit. We'll talk about cooking techniques and the 4S. Everybody's with me so far? Any questions? So my brain healthy food groups, and I can write these all down for you in your handout when I send you the recipes from the luncheon. So just listen and absorb, but you don't have to try to remember it too much. So my 10 brain healthy food groups, berries. In the Mind Diet, they say 2 servings a week, which is great. That comes directly from the Nurses' Health Study. They showed a reduction in Alzheimer's disease with that amount. But there are also studies that show that if you eat berries every day, you can improve your memory as you get older. You can perform better on cognitive tests. So I'm saying half a cup of berries if you can. I mean, sometimes it's not always possible where I live in Wyoming, but I eat a lot of frozen berries too. So I'm big on the berries. Leafy greens. My diet says 1 cup of leafy greens a day. I say go for 2 cups a day. It's not that hard. And it's a slam dunk in terms of your brain health. Absolutely slam dunk. Just have a larger salad than maybe you normally would. Most people are having 2 cups of leafy greens a day, wouldn't you say? Most days? Yeah, that's not too hard to do. And then vegetables. The Mind Diet says 1 cup of vegetables for 1 serving a day, which is great, but I don't think that's really enough because we're learning so much about the microbiome and the diversity of all the bugs that live in your gut. And that in turn dictates your brain health. So in order to have a healthy gut, you need to have a wide diversity of plant foods in your diet. That's why these different types of vegetables come in. So, and I would like 1/3 of your vegetables to be cruciferous, like the Brussels sprouts in your salad, because they have particular antioxidant compounds called sulforaphanes that are incredibly important for brain health and cardiovascular health as well. And I also want you to make sure you get a serving of colorful root vegetables every day. And that's because the pigments in these vegetables are flavonoids. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then mushrooms. Anyone here not like mushrooms? There's some people. I know, you told me this last night. It's okay, it's okay. It's not a game changer. You can have everything else. So since 2015, we have studies out of Singapore, Asia, and also Northern Italy that look at when people eat 2 servings of mushrooms a week, they have up to a 40% reduced risk of dementia. So we used to think that mushrooms didn't really have much in them except maybe a little vitamin D. But now we know that they actually have some really key nutrients that are particularly good for your brain. So I'm a big fan of mushrooms. And if you don't not like them, I would like you to fold these into your diet.
Dr. Fenn, on the berries, does it matter if they're frozen or not?
It does not.
Okay.
Frozen is just as good as fresh when it comes to the berries. I would like you to choose organic though, if you can, because they're so porous and they can soak up pesticide residue. And then seafood, we already talked about this a little bit. I'm good with 1 or more servings, and a serving of seafood is 3 ounces, which I think is about what you'll be having for dinner with your halibut. The reason seafood is so important is it provides the DHA and the EPA, 2 essential omega-3 fatty acids. And they're essential because your body doesn't make them. You have to get this from food. There are lots of nutrients that you can get from food, or your body will just synthesize them if you don't have them. This is one of those that you have to get from your food. And if you don't eat fish, I'd recommend taking a supplement for DHA and EPA. And even if you do eat fish, I would recommend you take a supplement for DHA and EPA. And then nuts and seeds. These are all in line with the Mind Diet. A 1/4 cup of nuts 4 times a week. Just snacking on nuts is shown to reduce your risk of having any kind of cardiovascular disease by about 40%. Isn't that crazy? There is a bit of a hierarchy in nuts. Walnuts have the highest plant-based omega-3s, pistachios, almonds, cashews. Those are my favorites. Yeah. Beans and lentils. Anyone here not like beans or lentils or legumes? That can be a tough one for some people. In your polenta is chickpea flour. That's your serving of beans for today. There's lots of ways to get beans if you don't really like beans. And then whole grains, 1/2 cup serving 3 times a week or day. It seems like a lot of whole grains, but whole grains are actually nutrient dense in and of themselves, and they provide a lot of fiber that you need. Eggs, poultry, and meat. So I included this in my brain healthy food groups. It's pretty controversial, but you know, a lot of the studies that we have on meat from the past are really processed food, like meat as processed food. Like people that go to fast food restaurants, or people that eat a lot of, processed foods like bacon or sausage or things like that. We're starting to get studies that look at, what if you eat meat in a plant-based diet? Like what if you have a Mediterranean style diet, you're eating small servings of chicken or grass-fed meat? It's completely different. We're starting to see that that doesn't actually really change your risk factor. It doesn't make your risk of heart disease or your risk of Alzheimer's go up. So I'm starting to see the studies get a little bit more focused on this. And I think it's a good thing because, I mean, you can avoid meat and chicken and eggs, and you still have a completely, totally brain healthy diet. Your brain will thrive. But I think it's really hard to get people to change so much. And people like to eat meat, and it's a good source of protein. And as you get older, it's really important to have a lot of protein in your diet because we start to lose muscle mass. So I would say eat small portions, which is about 3 ounces. It's about the size of a deck of cards, up to 4 times a week. It's not a lot of meals, but it's plenty. And then eggs. Eggs are based on your personal health history. Some people can eat eggs every day. It doesn't change their cholesterol whatsoever. Other people probably need to limit them a little bit. So that's an individualized thing. You can skip this food group entirely and you'll still be fine. Olives and olive oil. Does everyone know why extra virgin olive oil is so good for your brain? It's the type of fat. There's two reasons, but there's primarily monounsaturated fatty acids with some polyunsaturated, and it's very low in saturated fat. So that's one, but the thing that's different about olive oil and all the other oils in your cupboard is it also contains polyphenols. Like they gave people in that Green Med study, it's a huge source of polyphenols in the Mediterranean diet. So when you switch your cooking to using almost all, like I use probably 98% extra virgin olive oil, baking, cooking, everything, you're shifting the fat profile of your diet from one that is high in saturated fat to one that's mostly monounsaturated fat. And there are studies looking at the fat ratio of your diet. You want a diet that's high in monos, low in sat fat, primarily throughout your life. That's the heart healthiest diet, and we're finding that's the brain healthiest diet. So that's why extra virgin olive oil is so good. There's also, we have studies coming out of Greece. One was published last year looking at giving people with MCI, like my mom, extra virgin olive oil that's super high in polyphenols because it's fresh. And they actually showed an improvement in symptoms. Crazy, right? Crazy. Yes.
Got like grapeseed oil, avocado oil, all these other kind of oils that are popular right now.
It's a great question. So for high heat cooking, if I want to stir fry something or fry something, similar to fry an artichoke, I would use avocado oil. I don't like the seed oils. They're high in omega-6 fatty acids, which are thought to be more inflammatory. We need those in our diet too, but believe me, we're Americans, we get plenty of those in our diet. So the only oils I use in my kitchen are extra virgin olive oil. I have a high-end kind, like the kind you bring back in your suitcase when you go to Italy or someone gives you, that I just use for drizzling. And then I have the everyday kind that I buy at the supermarket. Then I have my avocado oil that I use for high heat. And I also like pecan oil. Can you all get pecan oil here? Pecan oil. It's got an amazing fat profile. It also has polyphenols like the olive oil. Yeah. Yeah, pecans are great. I love pecans. I'm a big fan. And then drinks. I took out the red wine, but I wanted you to make sure you drink coffee and tea. Coffee and tea are so good for your brain. Yes. Coffee and tea and water. Of course you need to drink more water. Coffee and tea. Okay, but here's the rub. Without sweeteners. Without artificial sweeteners. Without sweeteners. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, yeah. If you put a lot of dairy products in your coffee, it's probably going to bind up the antioxidants. I think of my cup of coffee is a cup of like 300 different types of antioxidants that my brain and my body needs. With more stuff I put into it, the more it gets neutralized, and then it just becomes a sugary drink. And those are the things we know are bad for you. So if you can't drink the coffee black, a little bit of almond milk is great, a little bit of cashew milk. If you can't drink it unsweetened, I think stevia is okay. I'm liking monk fruit sweetener as well. Those things are fine. But the goal would be to get down to a cup of black coffee. Okay, I had to change up the food to limit and avoid as well. Fast and fried food. Everyone agrees on this, correct? Less than one serving a week, which basically means don't eat it. Avoid all traditional American fast food. And then limit your fried food to a serving a week. I have to say, I love fried food. There's certain fried foods I absolutely love, especially when I'm traveling in Italy where they have it down. But I think frying at home is better than getting fried food at a restaurant. Yeah, so if I was going to fry a vegetable or something, I would probably use an air fryer or I would use avocado oil. Pastries and sweets, less than 5 a week. Probably should be less than that. I would like you to make your own pastries and sweets. When you make them yourself and using recipes using olive oil and low sugar, which I have a lot of them on my website that you can look at to follow, then you're getting, more of a whole food dessert or treat. You're going to eat less of it because there's more work put into it. And you're not going to get that refined sugar and all the junky chemicals. Dairy is always a rough one for people. I definitely eat more than an ounce of cheese a week. But I don't eat as much cheese as I used to. And when my mom was diagnosed with MCI, we basically got rid of all the cheese in her diet. She has yogurt, which I think is a really good form of dairy if you eat dairy products because of the fermentation. So I would say, choose high quality butter, preferably from grass-fed cows, because that gives you some omega-3s. When you go off butter and then you introduce it back in little by little, your food tastes so rich. It's crazy. I use olive oil to cook pretty much everything, but I do have a stick of butter around because my husband likes it. If I put that on toast, I'm just blown away by how good it tastes. But it also tastes very rich. It's like, your taste buds change when you cut that stuff out and then you add it back in. Cheese, I would go for high flavor, low fat cheeses. It's like pecorino, feta, Parmesan cheese.
Does it matter?
Only if you have sensitivities. Yeah, there's definitely some logic to going for the sheep's milk cheeses like they have in Europe, but it's more a sensitivity issue. And then avoid all processed margarine and butter-like spreads, even if they say they're good for you.
On the yogurt, does it matter if it's
I would go for, forget what I said about the saturated fat ratio. I would go for full fat yogurt. And the reason is, you're going to have your yogurt with your berries in the morning, right? Okay, you need fat to absorb all those phytonutrients. Without the fat, it's like, that was the whole problem with the non-fat diet in America. It was devoid of nutrients. There's a lot of added sugar. Definitely don't get added sugar in your yogurt. I would get plain Greek yogurt because we all need more protein. And after a certain age, for sure. Yeah, I would go for really good yogurt. Really, you don't need to eat a lot of it. And then I know this is really sad if you like to drink wine or have cocktails, but I had to put the alcoholic beverages in the foods to limit or avoid. Dr. Morris had them in the 10 brain healthy food groups, but there's a lot of new data that just came out in the last year or two, looking at brain volume data and how much we drink and how it shrinks our brain over time. And we're starting to see shrinkage even at the 7 to 14 drinks a week, which we used to call moderate drinking. So sadly, I love red wine. My husband collects red wine. We've cut back a lot, but it's okay. We still drink really good wine. We just drink less of it and less frequently. Ultra processed food, we all know that's bad, right? There's actually studies that show that your risk of dying from any cause is 60%, 62% if you have 4 more servings of ultra processed food a day, which a lot of people eat that way. If they're grabbing fast food for breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
To find that, like in the grocery store, like, can I buy deli meat? Is that considered?
I would call that processed meat. I don't buy deli meat anymore. Sometimes I'll get turkey.
Like you'll make your own chicken.
Yeah, I'll roast a chicken and then I'll slice it. Yeah. Ultra processed food, what's the actual definition? I think you know it when you see it. It's in a package. It's got a lot of ingredients. There's nothing that's really a whole food. And it's also marketed and designed to be hyper palatable, meaning it's like a bag of potato chips where you want to keep eating it. Those foods are marketed to make it so you keep eating them and keep buying them. You're kind of addicted. And then sweetened and artificially sweetened drinks, which we already touched on. But here's the data on that. There was a really good study out of Boston University, over 2,000 participants, and they showed that they showed that by the drink per day, there was a curve like this of your risk of stroke and also dementia. 3-fold increased risk. Yes.
What about honey?
Oh, I love honey. I love honey. I think that natural sweeteners, if you use them in the context of fiber, is okay. Like I use honey to bake, but I don't put it in my tea because it hits your bloodstream just like fructose. Can elicit a glucose and an insulin response. But I like natural forms of sweeteners. I like dates. I like honey. I use applesauce sometimes in cakes. Yeah, I like coconut palm sugar, which is what you use to make your cake. Okay, so you ready for the 4 Fs?
Yes.
How am I doing on time, you guys?
Well, you got 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay, perfect. Perfect. I know it's a lot of information. So this is just a way that I'm trying to get people to think about brain healthy food. When you go to the grocery store, when you look at a restaurant menu, you're like, is it brain healthy or not, right? It's not like there's a certified organic stamp on brain healthy food yet. Maybe there will be someday. So I want you to think about the fats, which we've talked about, the fiber, the flavonoids, and the fit. So the fats, we talked about this a little bit. The monounsaturated ratio is high. There are polyunsaturated, which are omega-3 fatty acids, what your brain needs, and there is very low in saturated fat. The brain healthy diet is usually less than 5% saturated fat. Whereas most standard American diets is almost all saturated fat. Like coconut oil, for example, it's almost 100% saturated fat. How do you get DHA? DHA is the omega-3 that's so crucial because not only is it it's funny to think of it this way, but it's a fat that's also anti-inflammatory, okay? So it goes to your brain, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, it combats inflammation in the brain, at the brain cell level, but then it also incorporates into the brain cells as part of its structure. That's why we need DHA so much. When I think of aging in the brain, I think of the neurons getting all these little holes poked in them from oxidative stress. And brain cells have like a myelin sheath around them to protect them, sort of like the rubber that coats the wire. And they're getting all these inflammatory insults throughout the day, throughout the week. What DHA does, it fills in those holes. It makes your neurons more resilient. It's absolutely crucial for a brain healthy diet. So you get this in fish and seafood. If you fry your fish, this is good. You overcook your fish, sounds good. You get it from algae, you get it from fish oil supplements. And the DHA EPA ratio you want to look at, if you're taking a fish oil supplement, is 3 to 1. Okay.
What kind of algae would I be?
Vegetarians and vegans, they need DHA, so they usually get it through supplements. They're algae based, which is where the fish get it. But it hasn't proven to be exactly the same thing. That way. Fiber. What's the big deal about fiber? Fiber is so important. That's why the base of our brain health pyramid is so many vegetables, so many beans, so many whole grains, all the leafy greens, all the cruciferous vegetables, the nuts and the seeds. The berries have a lot of fiber. That's why they passed the test. One of the reasons they passed the test to be the only fruit in the mind diet. Most people don't get enough fiber that they need. If you start eating this way, it's easy though. It just kind of takes care of itself. I don't recommend that people count fiber grams. I think that's just way too tedious. Kind of takes the joy out of eating when you're trying to add up your fiber grams. But one thing I would love for you to try, if you're trying to eat more plant-based, is try to eat 30 different types of plant a week. If you're eating a large variety of plants on a weekly basis, you will probably be getting enough fiber. And you'll be feeding your gut, which will in turn will be making short-chain fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory to your brain. And the gut microbiota also make neurotransmitters, which help with anxiety and depression. That's the whole gut-brain connection. So fiber. And then flavonoids. Who knows what flavonoids are? We touched on it earlier. There are a couple key papers that came out a few years ago. These are our actual scientific studies now. They have great cartoons. They're so much more fun than they used to be. So this is the same group at Rush that did the Mind Diet study. They did a very similar study looking at brain health food through the lens of flavonoids. Flavonoids are the things that make fruits and vegetables colorful. It's the plant pigments in foods. And I know that nutritionists have been telling you for years to eat the rainbow. And this is why, because they're actual nutrients. Those colors are actually good for you. And what they showed was that people that ate a diet that had a lot of these plant foods in them, they had 50% reduced risk of Alzheimer's. Very similar to the Mind Diet study. So when you think about flavonoids, when you shop for your food, when you look for your food, when you go to a restaurant, you're going to be doing a really good job. These are the flavonoids of interest, and a lot of the foods that you'll find. There was another big study that came out of Harvard that showed the exact same thing in July. I'm big on red onions. I'm big on capers. I'm big on tomatoes. I'm big on a lot of these Mediterranean foods because they are so high in flavonoids. Okay, the fourth F is fit. What do I mean by fit? So I can tell you that quinoa is a brain healthy food. It's got fiber, it's got flavonoids, it's got brain healthy fats, right? It's got 3 F's. Like quinoa is like the most brain healthy food I can think of right now. But if you don't like quinoa, this doesn't do anything for you. Like I want you to enjoy your food. So I want you to start with the foods that are brain healthy that you already love. And then I want you to try to build your own brain health pyramid based on that. And the Mediterranean diet up here has gotten so much attention and study and so much money behind it. But let's face it, this is a white person's diet from the Mediterranean. It doesn't fit everybody. If you look at some of these other traditional diets, look at the African heritage diet pyramid. It looks a lot like the Mediterranean diet. And look at all the leafy greens. There's leafy greens in here that I probably have never even tried. So I think if we go back to some of these traditional diets, if it was studied head to head, which I would love to see, but I don't think it's coming, it'd be just as brain healthy. Okay. Same with the Latin American diet pyramid. All of these are plant-based diets, the Asian diet pyramid. So when I show this to medical students, I give a talk at University of Cincinnati Medical School. I was their one nutrition lecturer, which was a huge honor. When I showed them this slide, I had a kid from Ghana come up to me. He said, you know, of all the times I've been in college or med school, I've never heard anyone talk about the diet that my grandparents ate. So I think that what I mean by fit is the food has to make sense. You know, I have a lot of Sicilian American recipes that I make more brain healthy. Eating that way makes me feel good. It connects me with my ancestors. It connects me to the place where everyone's from, connects me to my childhood. There's good memories associated with it. But it's also like mostly unhealthy food, so I have to change it quite a bit. But it's still delicious. So whatever it is that makes sense for you, that's going to be your brain healthy diet. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. So cooking techniques, basically braising, steaming, poaching, sous videing, cold smoking, pressure cooking, marinating. These are all really important. Okay. Brain harming cooking techniques, because they create inflammatory particles in the food, high heat, direct heat, hot heat, searing, frying. What they do, so just like we're figuring out what is good about brain healthy food, like the flavonoids and the fiber and the fats, we're also starting to figure out what's bad about unhealthy food. And that's AGEs. AGEs are advanced glycation end products. They're actually glycotoxins. So when you have a protein, like a piece of chicken, and you slather it with something sugary, like a barbecue sauce, and you apply high heat to it, it forms a compound called advanced glycation end product, or AGE. And these are inflammatory particles that get into the bloodstream. They pass through the blood-brain barrier. This is a amyloid protein in the brain, and this is tau tangles in the brain. They actually bind to amyloid and tau, these inflammatory particles, and they accumulate in the hippocampus, the memory center, right? And people with diabetics with Alzheimer's, they have a lot more of these AGEs in their brain. And so there's a large body of science looking at advanced glycation end products from our food supply, from the way we cook our food. You can't have no AGEs in your diet, but you can certainly limit it, and you can test it as well. And this is probably what makes a lot of our processed food inflammatory, and a lot of our fried food as well. So I know you all love barbecue, right?
That's very disappointing.
I can see it on your faces. If you marinate your meat before you grill it, marinate it in something acidic like yogurt or lemon juice, something like that, then you will reduce AGE formation by 50%. So there's that. Tips and tricks. You know, dairy milk, I don't know that many people are really drinking cow's milk anymore. It's actually debatable whether an adult should be drinking cow's milk. We know it's important for children. So if you can switch to a plant-based milk, I think that's a win-win. There's so many good ones out there. I make my own almond milk, but you don't have to get that fancy. There's good almond milk at the grocery store. Cheese, you know, try some of the nut-based cheeses at the grocery store. Some of them are really good. I make my own. I have recipes for them. They're not hard to do at all. But I don't expect, you guys are busy. You're probably not going to be making cashew cheese when you get home from work. But if you wanted to, you could. It would be delicious. When you choose your meat, choose high quality, ethically sourced, grass-fed if possible, and serve your meat in small servings. Now, if 3/4 of your plate should be plants when you're having meat for dinner. 3/4 of your plate. This will also, we jumped on the end, when you eat meat, let's say you go to a barbecue and you put in that barbecue chicken on the plate, if 3/4 of the plate is plant food, it reduces the absorption of the AGEs. Those leafy greens especially are really good at mitigating any kind of damage from inflammatory foods. Alcohol, drink mindfully. One trick to do this is you can measure your drinks. Another one is to take a month off a year. Did anybody do dry January this year? Woo! Since December 31st. Yeah, it's actually a powerful way to reduce your overall alcohol intake. It's powerful. It's not just a a fad. It's actually studies have shown that if you do a 1 month off, 6 months later you're drinking significantly less. So I try to do 3 months off a year. I do love my red wine, but I can take 3 months off a year for my brain. Coffee, we already talked about. Clean out your pantry of all those oils we talked about. I'm gonna skip through this. I think you all know all this. You don't need to see that. If you look at my guidelines next to Mediterranean Mind, hopefully plant-based, I mean, I just want to give you more options. I just want more information in there to make it easier for people to pick the best foods. Down here is limit and avoid, up here are the food groups. I also want more variety. You know, that's one of the problems I have with whole food plant-based diets, is that there's just not as much variety of food for people to choose from. And I don't want them to get bored. This is not a diet that you go on. This is like the way you feed your brain for the rest of your life. It's not a diet whatsoever. So I want it to be really delicious so that you love it and you keep doing it. So today, we had all of these food groups. And yesterday, yeah, and we had all of these brain health superstars. If there's an ingredient or a food that's particularly high in the nutrients we talked about, I call it one of my brain health superstars. For example, your cake does have sugar in it, but it also is made from boiling a whole orange, a blood orange, and turning it into a marmalade in the food processor. And that adds fiber, which slows the absorption of the sugar. There's dark chocolate, which we know has a lot of flavonoids. There's olive oil instead of butter. So everything in that cake is good for you. And sure, it has sugar, but with all that fiber, it's not going to be absorbed the same way. So I have one more, are you okay for one more sciencey graph? Okay, it's an important one. Alzheimer's disease starts at least 20 years before the first symptoms. We know this, right? We know that you don't just get Alzheimer's when you get older. We know that it starts at midlife and people with genetic variants, sometimes even sooner. Some people would say 30. I'm conservative. Has anyone seen this graph before? So I like to think of the getting Alzheimer's process. This is not meant to depress you. This is actually positive. I like to think of the whole process as a continuum. This is titled the Neurodegenerative Continuum for Alzheimer's. So over here we have normal, which is no cognitive decline. We have preclinical, which is a new stage of Alzheimer's. We're calling stage 0, right? They're going from giving the diagnosis based on memory testing to actually doing it based on brain data, right? And then we have mild cognitive impairment. That's where my mom was a few years ago. And then we have overt dementia. And here we have our biomarkers. We have amyloid plaques. We have synaptic dysfunction, which you can measure on a PET scan. We have tau tangles, which is particularly important in women. We have brain shrinkage, which we all know about. We have cognition, which is memory testing, and clinical dysfunction, the clinical picture of the patient. So all of this starts happening. I mean, this is middle age. This is where, all of us probably are here and beyond. So this is maybe our kids in their 20s and 30s, but if they had a gene variant for Alzheimer's, what's going on with them that early, okay? So the whole thing with Alzheimer's prevention, I don't mean this to be depressing. I mean this to be, these are the things that the food and the lifestyle measures are combating. These are the things that are fighting Alzheimer's. Where, the foods that we choose and choosing anti-inflammatory things that we eat and also exercise and other things like that, they're actually reducing all of these factors. So the key is, if we're going to be in stage 0, which I guarantee you that most of us in this room are probably at least stage 0, we just want to stay in stage 0. Who cares if you've got amyloid plaque in your brain if you never have any symptoms and you can enjoy your grandchildren and you get to the ripe old age of, whatever, and you're still healthy and functional. Does that make sense? Okay, homework. So this is a remarkable study. It's an old study that came out in the 60s called Aging with Grace. And Dr. Snowden was a PhD who followed an organization of nuns in Minnesota for many years. And they all agreed to have their brains looked at autopsy after they died. And so this, you can get this book on Kindle, get the one written by David Snowden, and he describes what he found in the brains of these nuns. And the spoiler is, there are some nuns that had amyloid protein riddled in their brain. Like when they looked at their brains, the doctors couldn't believe they didn't have Alzheimer's, but they had no symptoms of Alzheimer's. There are plenty of nuns who actually, they had symptoms of Alzheimer's during their life and their brains reflected that. But there was a subset of resilient nuns who had brain resiliency. And what were the other factors, besides all the things we just talked about, that protected their brains? Super interesting. So. Your second piece of homework is to set an intention. It's really great to go to a talk, and I love going to talks too. But if you don't take anything home and actually act on it, then it's really probably a waste of your time. So I want to invite you to email me the 3 things that you will do to protect your brain. And my email is brainhealthkitchen@gmail.com. You can all remember that. 3 things, totally confidential. It could be as simple as, I'm gonna eat more leafy greens, or I'm gonna stop going to McDonald's, or I'm gonna take a break from alcohol. Those are like an example of 3 really good things for your brain. Okay. And then the third one, this is really easy for you guys because you guys are already brain health ambassadors. But I really encourage anyone who comes to my cooking school to take that information and share it with everybody they know.
You have a way we can sign up for that, your website and all that. You're looking for your cooking school?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So be a brain health ambassador. You guys are experts at this. That means spreading the word that Alzheimer's is not inevitable for many, many people, that most people have diet and lifestyle issues that you can use to prevent Alzheimer's. Yes.
Is this presentation going to be available to attendees?
Yes, if you'd like, I can turn it into a PDF. Like the slides? Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm happy to.
We'll PDF and email it out.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Does it matter what kind of cooking utensils you use? I understand the like non-stick pans and aluminum and that sort of thing.
It's kind of important. I don't harp on it. Like I wouldn't use any of those old Teflon pans. Teflon has definitely been shown to be good. But you know, I use non-stick ceramic pans and I use cast iron pans.
There you go.
Pretty much it. But a lot of this stuff will be marketed to you, but I don't get too fussy about it. Most of my stuff is cast iron.
And can you broil? Is that hot?
That's like high heat.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, so I grill a lot, and a couple of years ago, I was asking for a Peloton for Christmas, and it was like right for the pandemic, and it really would have been nice to have a Peloton, but I never actually got it. And my husband said, "Your Christmas present came early, and it's too big to come inside, so it's out on the deck." And I was like, "Oh, the Peloton's out on the deck." I go out there, and it's a Traeger grill. Which, I don't really eat a lot of meat, but But so I was like, wow, you got me a grill. That's so great. But actually, it was a brilliant gift because I have learned how to grill without creating HEEs. So I have a hot zone and I have a low zone, and I do pretty much everything in indirect heat. And I'm just really careful how close the flame is. And I put like whole eggplants in there and get them all smoky and yummy and make baba ganoush out of it. It's really great for smoking fish. I do big slabs of salmon and do my own smoking. So it has like less salt and less sugar and all that stuff in it, but it's still really good. So yeah, I've come to love the Traeger, which unlike other grills, you guys know a lot more about grilling, I'm sure, but you can get it really low. And so you can cook for like slow cook things in the grill, kind of turn it into an oven. Yeah.
Time for one more question.
Got it. Yes.
In the presentation, you seem to make berries generic. Are all berries generic or all the?
No, there's a hierarchy. In my book, I have a food pyramid for each of the food groups, which is really hard to come up with because there's science behind some of it, but not all of it. Like the hierarchy for beans and lentils is really more like a triangle, right? It's more like a rectangle. But for berries, you want the purple, the black, the red, the blue. The darker the berry, like say a black currant, the more anthocyanins it has. My logo is a blackberry, and I chose that because it's the most common berry that you get at the supermarket with the highest amount of anthocyanins, even more than blueberries. And one of my favorite berries you can get at the supermarket are wild blueberries that you get in the freezer section. Those have 33% more anthocyanins than regular blueberries. Wild blueberries. They come from Maine. They're wild, but they're cultivated. Lots of different brands. If it says wild on it, then it's wild blueberry. Okay? And the reason is the smaller the berry, the more skin. The skin's where you get the polyphenols. So higher skin to flesh ratio. So we pick huckleberries where I live. Those are the best. No, it comes out in January 23. Thank you for all your questions. You guys are doing amazing. Thank you so much. In the summer. It's not quite ready.
When did you say your book's gonna be coming out?
I believe pre-orders happen in the summer.
Okay, we'll definitely be letting all of you know whenever we know that it's coming out. I feel like we all need to like run the Central Market, or I know I do and kind of redo my pantry. That was awesome. Thank you. Let's give Annie one more round of applause. Thank you. Let me give a shout out to Forefront. The bill was delicious. Thank you. It was wonderful. Thank you so much. Before we head out, I want to do a few announcements. Barbara Mathis, I want to thank you for doing the name tags. If you have a name tag on, please leave it at the desk for her. Thank you, Barbara and Barbara Glass, for doing the name tags. I appreciate you. Hamilton, I saw you snuck in. I want to give you a shout out. If y'all do not know Hamilton, he is our event planner. So Hamilton, raise your hand. Thank you. I want to lastly mention that our last meeting of the year is going to be Wednesday, May 4th at UT Southwestern with Dr. Christian LeBou, and he will be speaking on new advancements in planning care with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. That's going to be Wednesday, May 4th. And I believe that concludes our meeting today. I hope that all of you are very safe getting home, go very slow. And thank you again so much for being here with us today. And thank you for joining us on Zoom.